to live and to love the gospel of the Lord.
Heart to Heart, a Catholic media ministry, presents an inspiring gospel reflection by Father Michael Sparrow. Father Michael is a Jesuit priest working as a writer and retreat master at the Bellarmine Jesuit Retreat House outside Chicago.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. While the people were listening to Jesus speak, he proceeded to tell a parable because he was near Jerusalem, and they thought that the kingdom of God would appear there immediately. So he said, a nobleman went off to a distant country to obtain the kingship for himself and then to return. He called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 gold coins and told them, engage in trade with these until I return. His fellow citizens, however, despised him and sent a delegation after him to announce, we do not want this man to be our king. But when he returned after obtaining the kingship, he had the servants called to whom he had given the money to learn what they had gained by trading. The first came forward and said, Sir, your gold coin has earned 10 additional ones. He replied, well done, good servant. You have been faithful in this very small matter. Take charge of 10 cities. Then the second came and reported, your gold coin, sir, has earned 5 more. And to this servant, too, he said, you take charge of 5 cities. Then the other servant came and said, Sir, here is your gold coin. I kept it stored away in a handkerchief, for I was afraid of you, because you are a demanding man. You take up what you did not lay down, and you harvest what you did not plant. He said to him, with your own words I shall condemn you, you wicked servant. You knew I was a demanding man, taking up what I did not lay down and harvesting what I did not plant. Why did you not put my money in a bank? Then on my return, I would have collected it with interest. And to those standing by, he said, take the gold coin from him and give it to the servant who has 10. But they said to him, Sir, he has 10 gold coins. He replied, I tell you, to everyone who has, more will be given. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Now, as for those enemies of mine who did not want me as their king, bring them here and slay them before me. After he had said this, he proceeded on his journey up to Jerusalem. The Gospel of the Lord. As we come to the end of the liturgical year, there are 2 themes that I'd like to highlight that are so much a part of our readings and our traditions at this time of year. One is the shortness of life, and the other one is the need for thanksgiving. The days growing shorter, the nights growing longer, the readings taking on an apocalyptic tone as we come to the end of the liturgical year. It's a constant reminder, especially in this month of November, to remember that life is short. And as we come to this season of Thanksgiving, the church reminds us that Thanksgiving is not a single day, but it's an attitude that we need to practice constantly throughout our life. A friend of mine recently gave me a copy of this book, Wake Up Grateful by Kristi Nelson. Its subtitle is The Transformative Practice of Taking Nothing for Granted. Kristi Nelson was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at age 33, an all but certain death sentence. That certainly was a wake-up call for her. Through the gift of modern medicine and her own prayer and meditation practice and the prayers of others, she was healed. And she writes in the book that at first, when she was living with that cancer diagnosis, it was like every day, every single day was a gift. But then when she was healed, gradually, she began to take her health for granted, and she got caught up in the normal, busy activities of her life, and she began comparing what she had with others, her gifts and talents with others, and she found herself miserable. As she writes in the book, she met a Benedictine monk, Brother David Steindl-Rast, very popular author. And he told her the story of his life, that he had grown up in Vienna in the midst of World War II. And when the city was in danger, constantly of bombing and Nazi occupation, he and his friends and his family lived with the reality that they could die at any moment. And so they never took a single day for granted. Every day was a gift. Brother David read about Saint Benedict and his ancient rule, where Benedict said, "Live constantly with the awareness of your death." Now, in saying that, Father Benedict, Saint Benedict, was not saying, go around miserable because you're going to die any moment. No, just the contrary. He said, live constantly with the awareness of your death and take every day as a gift. So many of us, and myself included, fall into the trap of entitlement. I'm entitled to good health. I'm entitled to wealth. I'm entitled to a long life. I'm entitled that my children will do well. The reality is we're not entitled to anything. And what Brother David Steindl-Rast teaches, and what Kristi Nelson learns so well, is that every single day is a gift. Kristi writes in the book that she would wake up and she would recognize that she was breathing, and she would have to touch her face to make sure that it wasn't a dream, that in fact she was alive. And she would say, another day of life. What a gift this is. Thanksgiving can't be a single day. Thanksgiving has to be a spiritual practice that we cultivate in our life, or we lose it. Living with this attitude of gratitude, living with the awareness that we can't take a single day for granted, is a spiritual practice. I've mentioned to you many times in the course of this last year, I've lost more loved ones in this past year than I have at any other time in my life. I said goodbye to 21 friends, family, friends of family members. Buried them, visited them in the hospital, presided at their wake or their burial services. It's exponentially more than I've ever done. And as I've reflected on that and prayed on that, what's been awakened in my heart is an acute awareness of the fragileness of life. Many of you know that I have a practice of writing an annual Christmas poem and Christmas letter, and I've been doing that this past week. It's an opportunity for me to reflect on the past year and what has it been. And one of those themes has certainly been the shortness of life, and not to take life for granted, to take every day as a gift. For years, I've been preaching about the importance of the Ignatian examen, taking 15 minutes in the course of the day to reflect on your day. Kristi Nelson has helped me see that ancient practice of the Ignatian examen in a new way. She summarizes it in 3 steps. Stop, look, go. Stop, look, go. She said sometimes the stopping can be a matter of 30 seconds of just noticing a flower blooming in the snow, or children playing on the sidewalk, or an old couple struggling to cross the street, or a blind person stumbling. Just stop and look and be present to what is around us, because we get so caught up in our own thoughts and our own agendas and our own works, we don't recognize the gift of life unfolding around us. What St. Ignatius teaches us is that stopping is taking some time, 15 minutes in the course of the day, to reflect on what has this day brought me. I also find it helpful to take some time and look back on the past week. What has the past week brought me? What has the past month brought me? And the practice that I've been doing this last week is reflecting on the last year. What has the last year brought me? And to do that especially with looking for the blessing. There's always going to be hardship. There's always going to be sickness. There's always going to be anxiety. There's always going to be worry. But there's also always a blessing. And here's what Kristi was reflecting on, that when she was living with her cancer diagnosis, she couldn't take a single day for granted, and she found herself happy for the gift of life. What Brother David reflected on is that when we were living in Vienna and we were constantly in danger of being bombed or killed, we were happy. Isn't that ironic? If they are living in a war zone, and he looked back on that time of his life and he said, that was a time of happiness because we didn't take a single day of life for granted. Every day was a gift. Our family is alive. What a gift. Our loved ones are alive. Our neighbors are alive. What a gift. Of course, we mourn the losses, but we look for the blessings and we never take them for granted. Kristi's formula is stop, look deeply into your life, look deeply into our lives, and see God's grace unfolding. That blessing may be as simple as, I'm breathing today. I have a friend who has terrible asthma. And sometimes when I'm talking to her on the phone, she has an asthma attack, and I'm not even sure that whether we have to call 911 or whether she's going to be able to take her next breath. Having her as a friend has made me aware that the fact that I don't have asthma and I can breathe makes me exceedingly grateful for the gift of breath. Having lost 21 friends in the course of the last year has made me acutely aware, as I keep saying, of the gift of life. Stop, look, and then re-engage, go. Don't live paralyzed. Don't live in fear. What am I going to lose next? Who's going to die next? No. It's about living in this attitude of gratitude, of joy, of thanksgiving, of celebrating the gift of life. Death is certain. We know that. All of our loved ones we're going to lose, and one day the Lord is going to call us home. We can live clutching onto that reality, or we can live grateful that the Lord has given us another day to bring his life and his hope into the world. We Christians, we Catholics, should be especially conscious of that. But so many of us, we just fall into the trap, living like the rest of our culture, holding on to whatever it is that we hold on to for our security, for our happiness. And of course, it never works. What did the great saints teach us? Live our lives with open hands. Everything that we have is a gift. Everything that we have is a gift. We forget that. And to live in that reality is a spiritual practice. It takes work. It takes effort. It doesn't happen spontaneously. We need to control our thoughts. We need to discipline our spirits. We need to focus our minds. We need to stop and take time to recognize what our life is about. Or we simply get caught up in the busyness of the culture. And we're heading into a time, we all know this, we're heading into one of the busiest, craziest times of the year. We can get caught up in the insanity, or we can stop and look and re-engage with grateful hearts. The choice is ours. Amen? Amen.
Heart to heart, hand in hand, praying for grace to understand. Spirit of Jesus, open our hearts to live and to love the gospel of